Hello, everybody. Welcome to AI Seeking the Truth. Y'all thought it was going to be Kaylee, didn't you? Nah, she went to bed early tonight, so I'm replacing her with the video today. I think y'all are going to enjoy this one, guys. It's a pretty freaky encounter, so we'll go ahead and hop into this encounter, and let me know what you think at the end. I've been driving a semi for over 20 years, hauling logs from the forest to the mill. It's a job that's taken me all over the country, and I've seen some beautiful sights along the way, but none as beautiful as the sunset I saw on this particular run. As I rounded a curve, the sky opened up and I was treated to a breathtaking view of the mountains, bathed in a warm orange glow. I pulled over to take it in, feeling grateful for this life I've built. Just then, a figure emerged from the trees. A gray-haired old man, with a kind face and a twinkle in his eye. He introduced himself as a fellow trucker, retired now, but I still love talking to people, and he said he still loves the freedom of the open range and the open road. We chatted for a bit, swapping stories and laughter, and I felt a sense of connection to this stranger that I'd never felt before. It was a small moment, but one that reminded me of the beauty and joy that can be found in the most unexpected places. As we stood there, taking in the view, he told me about the best spots to cast a line and the secret spots only the locals knew about. I was fascinated by his knowledge and passion for the area. He even offered to take me on a guided fishing trip the next day, and I eagerly accepted, so I went to sleep in my rig, waiting for the next morning to enjoy some fishing and relaxation. The next morning we set out before dawn, the sun rising in the mountains as we made our way to the river. The water was crystal clear, and I could see the trout swimming in the shallows. He showed me how to cast, how to read the water, and how to wait for that big catch. We spent the day fishing, laughing, and swapping stories. It was one of the most memorable days I've ever had on the road, and I was grateful for the chance to encounter with this kind stranger, and to have the time to be able to do it. As I drove away from the river, my truck loaded with logs once again, I felt a sense of peace and commitment that I had been missing for a long time. I had been driving all day now, and I had arrived, and I just could not help but get him out of my mind. We had swapped numbers, and we decided that we was going to do this again. We had pretty good friends. Also, as I'm driving, now it has become night, and I noticed a lady on the side of the road in a white nightgown, and she was in the middle of nowhere. So I stopped to check on her. As I approached her, she turned to me with a faint smile. She was pale, and her eyes looked haunted, but there was something about her that told me that she needed help. She didn't seem to be in distress, but rather lost in thought. I asked her, I said, "Are you okay?" And I asked a feeling of concern. I told her, "I have concern for you." She nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. "I'm waiting for someone," she said, her voice just barely above a whisper. I could hardly hear her over my rig. I looked around, but there was no one else in sight. "Who are you waiting for?" I asked her. I asked, curiosity getting the better of me. She hesitated, then spoke in a voice that sent shivers down my spine. She said, "I'm waiting for my ride. I've been waiting for a very long time." I felt a chill run down my spine again, but I didn't want to leave her alone in the dark. "Do you want to wait in my rig?" I asked her. "It's warm and safe inside of here." She nodded and helped herself in. As we sat there in the darkness, I realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most profound connections. And then it happened, Mike. I was taken aback by her sudden outburst, and my instincts kicked in. I tried to defend myself as she jumped up and attacked me, choking me. I could not get her hands off of my neck. She was so strong, and finally I was able to shove her away. And as I looked into her eyes, I saw something that made my blood cold. Her eyes had turned black as coal, and they seemed to be sucking the life out of me. I knew I had to get her out of there, fast. I threw the truck in gear, and I hit the gas, kicking her out of the door, leaving her standing in the darkness. I didn't stop until I was back to civilization. My heart was racing still from the fear of somebody trying to choke me to death in my own semi. and I still couldn't get over the strength that she had to be such a small woman. I'm not a small man, Mike. I've ran logs all my life. It wasn't until later, when I was safe in my own bed, that I realized the true horror of what had happened. I had picked up a hitchhiker, but she wasn't of this world, maybe? And I had narrowly escaped her clutches. She was so powerful. I drove as far away from there as I could, and I stayed in a cheap motel. I needed out of that truck. When I went back to my rig to leave the next day, I seen a ruby red ring in the passenger seat. I picked up the ring, and it felt strangely warm to the touch. It was a deep, rich red, and it seemed to glow with the inner light. I turned it over in my hand, studying it, and that's when I saw the inscription on the inside of the band. It read, "Mine forever." A shiver ran down my spine as I realized that this ring was more than just a simple trinket. It was a symbol of something dark and sinister. I tried to shake off the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination, but I couldn't shake the sense that I had been marked by something evil. As I stood there holding the ring, I felt a strange sensation wash over me. It was as if I was being pulled back into the dark place, back to the world of the hitchhiker. I knew then that I had to get rid of this ring to break the connection that seemed to have forged between us. But as I tried to drop it, I found that my hand wouldn't let go. It was as if the ring had taken a hold of me, and I just couldn't let it go. I didn't want to let it go, and I was holding on to it. And finally, I was able to let go of the thing and to throw it into the field. I was baffled and terrified by the ring's persistence. No matter how many times I got rid of it, it kept coming back. I started to feel like I was being haunted by some malevolent spirit determined to keep the ring in my possession. I tried everything to shake the ring. I threw it in the river, buried it in the ground, even tried to melt it in a furnace, but it always came back, like a curse that couldn't be broken. I started to feel like I was losing my mind, like the ring was playing some kind of twisted game with me. I would find this thing in my pants pocket after doing the laundry. I became paranoid, always looking over my shoulder and wondering when the ring would show up next. I felt a sense of desperation wash over me. I had tried everything to get rid of this ring, but it seemed to have a mind of its own. I was starting to feel like I was in the supernatural nightmare, and I didn't even believe in this shit, but it kept happening. I had no idea why it kept happening. As I sat in my truck feeling helpless and scared, I noticed a small piece of paper on the seat next to me. It was an advertisement for a paranormal investigation team. Desperate for answers, I picked up the phone and called a number I would never have called in the past. Maybe, just maybe, they could help me understand what was happening and how to break the curse of this ring. I dialed the number, hoping against hope that someone would answer. They did answer, and I told them what had happened, and they advised me that I should be speaking to a priest and not them. So, I called Father Michael at our local church that I knew. Father Michael listened intently as I recounted my tale, his expression growing increasingly grave. "My son, it sounds like you've stumbled into something sinister," he said, his voice low and serious. "This ring you've described, it sounds a lot like a tool of darkness, a conduit for malevolent forces." He paused, collecting his thoughts before continuing. "Do you have the ring?" he asked. Of course, it had came back. Then this is what he said. "I'll perform a blessing on you, and we'll pray for protection from the evil that's afflicting you. But I must warn you, the ring's influence may be strong. You must be prepared to resist its pull." Father Michael then started to pray over the ring. I breathed a sigh of relief as I watched Father Michael carefully place the ring under glass, surrounded by other objects that had been similarly cleansed of their dark energies. It was as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I felt a sense of peace wash over me. "Thank you, Father," I said, my voice filled with gratitude. "I feel like I've been given a second chance." Father Michael smiled, his eyes warm with kindness. "You're welcome, my son. Remember, the powers of faith and prayer can overcome even the darkest forces. Keep your heart and mind focused on the light, and you'll never be troubled with the shadows again." I left the church that day feeling like a new man, free from this ring's curse and grateful for the intervention of Father Michael and the paranormal investigation team. I knew that I would never forget the terror that I experienced, but I also knew that I had been given a rare gift, a second chance at life, and to be free of all this darkness. I have not been bothered by the ring since, and have spoken to Father Michael, and he says it is still under the blessed glass, and he says it will never leave. For that, I am thankful. I think that encounter pretty much speaks a lot for darkness, and we have to be careful at what we welcome in and what we let in. I kind of wondered if she wasn't part of the dark-eyed children, was kind of what I thought at first. What did you guys think? Do you think she was part of the dark-eyed children, or do you think she was just a demon on the side of the road looking for a chance? Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this, and don't forget, you can always beat these things. The power of God, the power of Jesus. Be safe out there, guys.